I reckon I'm 2 weeks away from losing my biggest and best fish, so why not make a YouTube video about it? Here's a video about a leaking pond that I can't fix. That's right, my prize pond full of exciting mid to upper double brood fish, subtly losing its water right at the beginning of the summer. Any fish keeper's nightmare at the start of a drought. We're about 18 inches down where it should be now. It's just kept dropping and dropping, and the pond above it hasn't. So started to investigate, and I found a bit of a problem. So I thought I'd cut my way down through to the ditch where the outflow pipe is to see if maybe there's a problem with the seal on the elbow of the pipe. I'll show you what I found. So you can see here the water from the pond is tracking alongside the outside of the pipe and down into the ditch. Not ideal when we've got 30 degrees forecast this weekend. The fish have spawned, there's loads of fry, the pond's really demanding a lot of oxygen from all that fry, and because it's the water levels dropping and dropping, the issues are getting more and more concentrated as the water level drops, so the bacterial action is much faster. The biological oxygen demand of the pond up there is going to be pretty extreme. What should I do to get out of this situation? First thing, stop feeding. I'm going to stop feeding to reduce the biological oxygen demand of the pond. The fish aren't going to suffer. They're actually going to suffer more if I carry on feeding now, which if the fish start stressing and we've got a water quality problem, they pick up parasites, this problem is going to carry on through the growing season. I'm going to lose the growing season and the growing window. So I'm better off just letting things settle down. Don't feed, let's sort the problem out, and we'll carry on feeding once I know I'm on top of the problem. I've been in this situation before with another pond that I chose to drain dry and rest for a summer. Leaving the pond empty and dry allows oxygen into the silt, so that once flooded the following winter, the silt would be a firm and incredibly productive as a substrate, which is a great way to reset the pond in preparation for the next batch of fish. However, when it came to refilling this pond, it just would not hold water. The soils had dried out so much that they'd become porous and the water depth just wouldn't get above 2 foot. Staying so shallow for so long made it very easy for sunlight to penetrate the pond, and weeds quickly dominated. The fish just wanted to spend all summer basking in that weed, and the pond just wouldn't function despite our constant efforts to rake the weed. Weeks and weeks of weed raking, we were just fighting a losing battle. That's when I remembered the story of the college lake at Sparsholt. The college lake story, if I remember rightly, when that lake was first dug, it didn't hold water. And the solution they came to seal it was to apply a lot of manure or slurry, obviously, before they put fish in there. And in the summer, they had a really aggressive algal bloom. And all that single-celled algae blocked the porous soils, and the college lake never leaked again. Sorry, what? Yeah, do sell fish feed. Should probably get some. www.bpmillion.co.uk. Remembering that story of the college pond influenced my next move on my leaking pond. After draining and removing the fish from that leaking pond, I decided to overstock it for the following year. Overstocking a leaking pond might sound suicidal, but my theory was that the amount of fish would agitate the substrate enough to prevent the weed from growing. The nutrients released from the soil, along with the elevated ammonia produced by the fish, should all break down and feed a potent algal bloom, essentially creating the same effect that cured the leak in the college lake story. Obviously, to create this situation, I'd need to supplement the dissolved oxygen with constant aeration. Although the stocking densities meant that the growth rates were slightly compromised on the yield of fish that year, I knew I could sort that out the following year. By giving them some space, they'd soon grow on. That pond never leaked again. It was so satisfying to see this plan work exactly as I'd intended it to. However, this time it's 30 degrees and it's June, and I don't have the luxury of time to make that plan work. I had to think of something else. So my first go-to is a product called Bentonite. It's a clay product which is activated by water, and it sort of swells and sticks and helps to seal any pond leaks. So that's the first answer. Hiya, I'm ringing looking for a product to help seal a pond. I've got a leak around overflow pipe and I could do with some advice on what I need and how to use it properly.
Okay, yeah, that's something we can certainly help you with. We have a couple of products. Bentonite pills will be the best one for you.
Okay.
Powder is you've got to have a completely still day and it will tend to sit on the top of the water. That's why you've got to mix it in the bucket first, really. But
Right.
the granules are just bigger and they'll find their way to the cracks for the current being pulling them out.
Yeah.
So that's the perfect sort of thing that you can use.
Brilliant. No, I appreciate that. I was panicking all weekend about what I'm going to do about this, so that's been very helpful. Thank you.
Not a problem, Ben. Thank you for
Great.
your call.
Thank you. Speak soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The Bentonite's ordered. I've just looked at the forecast and it's looking like 28 degrees at the end of the week. So this is really the perfect week for disaster with a pond that's got a leak in it. So I am feeling the pressure a little bit, but I've been reassured that this is going to work by the Bentonite people. They're quite confident, but I feel like that's putting a lot of pressure on them as well. So fingers crossed, it's going to work. We're going to get to the weekend and we're going to have a fully sealed pond. Plan B would have to be a little bit more creative, but we'd essentially have to rescue the fish in this pond, because in this pond behind me I've put my brood fish, my no special fish that I'm trying to breed from. They've spawned successfully, so they've got loads of fry in here now that I really want to look after. And those brood fish, plan B, I'd have to move them and rescue and put them in another pond where there's a bit more space for them, where there's no leaks and the water is plentiful and consistent water quality, just to keep them alive for the summer. The offspring, the fry would be fine in here. In fact, they'd have a very good year in here without the parent fish there. If the pond keeps getting lower and lower and shallower, that's actually really good for the fry. And as long as I can keep the weed from dominating, then they'll actually have a good year. So that's plan B. If I have to rescue the big fish, it's not the end of the world. It's not ideal. I'd like to keep them all in there together. But yeah, I've not had this before. I've never had this pond leak. The Bentonite's arrived. I'm going to waste no time in getting this in the van and taking it down. I've ordered 2 sacks of the powdered Bentonite. So that's a very, very fine powder. I've never used it before, so don't be fooled if I sound like I know what I'm going on about. And I've got 5 sacks of granules, Bentonite granules. So my thinking is if this water's seeping and tracking alongside the overflow pipe, take this bag in with me, go to the pipe, have the pipe between my legs where it enters into the bank. Here, I'll put this sack underwater, cut it while it's underwater. The powder will hopefully seep into where it's seeping alongside the pipe, because it's very, very fine stuff. Hopefully that will automatically draw into the leak. Then I was going to put 3 sacks of the granules over the top, just all around, sort of spread it around. And then behind me, I've got the mat, a rubber mat. So I've had this lying around. I thought that would be good to put over the top of it, because I'm worried that if the fish come in, then they might rub up against it and bugger up my plan. So I thought if I apply all that, put this over the top, and I think that will probably help to keep all the Bentonite contained in the area that I want to concentrate it in. So that is the plan. No idea if it's going to work. We're going to go down now and see what the leak looks like now. Okay, that's what we're dealing with. Now I will warn you quickly that I am going to take my shorts off to do this. I'm not going to put waders on, so if you're easily offended, then best to tune out now. Quarter of an hour has been and gone since I put the first bag in. And when I just looked just now, there wasn't an awful lot of change. I don't know if it's slowed or not. It's still running, as you can see. But I'm gonna go back to the mill, get a bucket of water, and just see how the Bentonite reacts when I put it in water. So then I can have an idea of what's happening underwater here. I'll probably give it 24 hours and then see what it looks like in the morning, and I can sort of plan it ahead. I've never used it before, so we're learning as quickly as you are if you've never used it before and you're watching this. Best way to learn, just getting have a play. And I'll keep you posted over the next 24 hours when I have some more updates. Oh, bloody hope we can get this sorted. It is so hot. I can't afford to keep losing water in what's already a very dry year so far. The other reason why I'm so concerned about this pond is, you imagine this was 18 inches deeper a few weeks ago. So when I stocked this pond out, I know from previous harvests what this pond's capacity is and how best it performs and operates and functions at such a stocking density. So when I stock these ponds, I purposely stock them to a density to achieve a harvest at the end of the growing season. That's how I work out my stocking densities and the weights of fish I want to put in. I kind of reverse engineer by looking at the harvest weight and harvest yield I want to achieve that I know this pond is capable of, and then I work backwards to my stocking densities. So those densities are calculated on a full pond, on the total volume of the pond. So without that volume in the pond, volume of water I should say, my calculations are going to be off. So how is that going to impact the yield this year? I think it'll be great for the younger fish, the juvenile carp, the fry. Shallower ponds, pushing fish closer to the lake bed, disturbing more of the substrate, getting more nutrient into the water, sharing the nutrient of the substrate with the water is really going to benefit those small fish. For the bigger fish, I think they're going to stress a little bit more. I don't think the adult fish will do so well, but that's not the target for this pond, so I'm not too concerned in that respect. But it is a concern, and it is something I need to think about for the rest of the season if this pond doesn't bounce back up, if we don't get some substantial rainfall. We're in the middle of June, it's unlikely, so it'll be an interesting one. I welcome challenges because we always learn from them, so I'm trying to spin this into a positive as best as I can. In a bin of water, I emptied a few kilos of bentonite to see how it behaves. I left it for an hour and it seemed to swell, and when I tried to pick it up, it would almost lather my hands, almost like soap. I was optimistic that this is exactly what I needed to block the water from weeping around the overflow pipe. Full of anticipation, I went back to the pond to see if it had worked its magic. I can't drive past any of my ponds without feeding them, of course. Ooh, interesting. We're getting somewhere at last. That is a lot slower. And this little trickle might just be what's draining off from this wet bank all around here. So hopefully, if we keep an eye on that, that shouldn't get any worse. That is good news. Pep, what do you reckon? Happy days! Get in there! That is what I wanted to see. I was so relieved to have finally stopped the leak on such a sweltering hot day because it was my birthday on the following day. So Zoe and I were due to go away for the weekend. There was no way I'd be able to relax with this pond still leaking. There you are. In my robe on the old Thatcher's there, eh? After the week I'd had, it felt like a celebration of sealing that pond rather than a birthday celebration. Upon returning from our holiday, I jumped on the quad to feed the ponds and check upon the fix. Much to my horror, it was leaking again. As we saw, the bentonite clearly stopped the leak initially, but only temporarily. But I felt like I should give bentonite another chance, because it clearly had an effect, and frankly, the other options were far more laborious. Therefore, instead of the 5 sacks that I'd previously applied, I ordered a full ton, 1,000 kilos of it, so then I could clearly satisfy my mind that bentonite does or does not work for this type of fix. I pulled out the rubber mat that I'd put in to protect the bentonite, and this time I set up a net to try and keep the fish out of the area that I'm treating. Then we set about dumping 500 kilos of bentonite over that area. starting with sacks emptied directly on top of where the pipe enters the dam wall, then finishing with a more broad spray of granules over the general area, just in case there was sand or gravel seams that needed blocking. Half a tonne of bentonite in this zone, all around the pipe where it enters through the bund, through the dam wall and down into the ditch, is treated with half a tonne of bentonite. I've spread it around quite liberally around this area, put the net round there to stop the fish getting in and really churning it up. That should keep a little bit of a barrier between the fish and the area that I've treated to really allow that bentonite to work. So let's find out if I was just not putting enough bentonite in, because surely this is enough bentonite now. Got another half tonne. If it's not, let's go and have a look. Well, that is encouraging. The outflow pipe that you'll all be familiar with. I can't see any water really trickling out of there. So that's a promising sign. I've only applied that, finished applying that about 10 minutes ago. It's been about a week since we applied the bentonite, that last half tonne, and I'm pretty happy with the results there. It's still wet. We've certainly dodged a bullet with a lot of summer left to go. I'm happy that the water will actually be coming into the pond faster than it's coming out now, although we will be having a little bit of evaporation, but this is pretty much nothing now. This small amount of water that's just weeping, just weeping. It's 100 times better than it was a few weeks ago before we went away on holiday. Thank God for that. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Really helps, and we'll catch you on the next one.